Hello wonderful people, it's Wild here. In today's tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to create this grand Victorian style greenhouse. This extravagant build would be a show-stopping centerpiece for your world and would make for the perfect place to display all the incredible plants you get on your adventures in survival. I'll be showing you step by step how to create this and how I decorated my greenhouse. Let's get into the video. The materials you'll need for your Grand Victorian greenhouse are on your screen now. Keep in mind that if you don't have this much quartz, you could substitute it for some pale oak items. For example, you could swap out the quartz pillars for some stripped pale oak logs. And remember, if you would like a schematic or world download for this build, to check out the link in the description. Here is the outline for today's build. You can see that for a larger build like this greenhouse, we have a more complex outline, but you want to make sure you allow at least a 45 by 27 area for this build. You can also follow along the alternating blocks to place in your own outline. Now I've used concrete, but you can use something easier to obtain like polished andesite. Here's how the outline would look if you use polished andesite. You can use any block you like, but using one with an outlined border, like you can see here on the polished andesite blocks, makes it a lot easier to count. Having a closer look at this outline before we get building, you'll see that there is a 3 wide gap in the center front and center back, as well as a 3 wide gap off to each side on both the front and the back. This build is completely symmetrical, so the front side will look like the back side and the left side will look like the right side, which will make our lives a lot easier when we're building. Let's get started by placing in some columns that are going all the way around the build using some quartz pillars and chiseled quartz blocks. I'm going to start on either side of the front entryway, building up 4 high with my quartz pillars, then a chiseled quartz block, and then another pillar. I'm going to replicate this design, but let's place in the locations for them first. I'll have 2 blocks gap and then another pillar, and let's do the same on the other side with a 2 block gap. Coming back from that, we're going back 3 blocks, then 3 blocks off to the side, another 3 blocks. Let's do this over here. 3 blocks and 3 blocks over to here. Now we've got to start going around the curve. So I'm going to count 2 blocks directly across and back 1 diagonally, and that'll leave me with a 3 block gap like this. Then I'm going to have 2 diagonal blocks and place in a pillar. And this time we're going to do the opposite. So we're going to have 1 next to it directly, diagonally forward for 2, and then 1 here. Let's go do this on the other side. 2 back 1, place 1 here, diagonally 2, place 1, 1, forward 2, and here. Now I can repeat this going back around the other side, making sure that all of my columns line up opposite each other. And you can see that they do. You can also check that your columns line up this direction as well, which they do as well. I'm just adding the last pillar to the top of each of these columns to finish the design, and you should have a total of 30 columns placed in now. Let's have a look where they are from above and from the front. So most of the gaps are going to have an equivalent of 3 blocks. You can see that here, around on the side here, and in this gap, and even on the diagonal, they make up about 3. It's just these 2 where we have the 2 diagonal blocks, and the 2 on either side of the front and the back where we have a different spacing. Next, I'm going to take some quartz slabs and we're going to start filling in around this outline between the columns. I'm going to place them in the 2 wide gap on either side of the doorway here. Coming back these 3 across this way, I'm going to skip this group of 3 here and place them in this gap, going all the way around the build. This is going to really give you the shape of the greenhouse. Leave this gap out and continue. Make sure you're using proper quartz slabs here, not the smooth ones. We'll be using smooth ones later, but not for this step. Almost all the way there. And there we go. Now we need to start placing in some polished diorite. That's going to give us where our glass will sit. Let's start at the front. All we need to do to create this border is to follow the shape created by the build. I'm going to leave out the corner here and then jump around to this side. And I'm going to go straight behind this gap. Following around here, I'll then have a group of 2, then 1, then 2, and back to following the circle. Continuing over this gap, and I'll leave out the corner and follow along as normal. Now along the back of the build, I'm going to continue these polished diorite blocks all the way across, but I'm leaving a gap at the front for where the doorway is. There we go, I've got all of my diorite in. Now I can start placing in the glass. We're going to be building up 5 high with plain glass blocks all the way around on top of all of the polished diorite. Let's get placing. Alright, I've got my glass in now and we have a little bit more to add. At the front over the door, I'm going to leave a 2-block gap for the walkway and then place in 3 glass above like this. I'm also going to place 3 glass along the top in the center front and the center back. I'm also going to come to each side of the build where we don't have the slabs in these spaces and place 1 glass in the center of that 3-wide panel. There we go. Next, I'm going to take some smooth quartz blocks and I'm going to place these on top of each of the diagonal blocks in the corners of this build. There we are. Next, I've got some quartz pillars and these are going to be placed facing inwards towards the build wherever we have a column on the build. Obviously on the corner I can't do this, so I'm skipping over that space. Skip the corner and keep going around. Almost there. And done. Next, I'm going to take some diorite walls and build them up in these corner spaces to the height of the glass. And on top of this, I'm going to place in a pearlescent frog light. You can switch this out for whichever color of frog light you prefer. Now that that's in, I've got some more polished diorite and I'm placing it on top of all of the remaining glass at this level, so everything is going to finish up at the same height. From above, our build will be looking like this. And let's have a look from the front. Now we need to start adding in some archways to give this a more intricate look. Let's start on the 4 panels where we have the extra glass at the top and no slabs at the base. I'm going to begin by placing in 3 smooth quartz slabs at the top, like this. I'll then come forward with a diorite slab in the center and then 2 upside down diorite stairs facing out like that. Coming down from here, I'm going to place in 3 smooth quartz slabs in line with the base of this chisel block. I'm going to leave a slab space and then add in another row like that. Under here, I'll place in 2 smooth quartz stairs to create the archway. This will be followed by placing in 3 quartz slabs into the ground layer like this. Then I've got some end rods and I'm going to stack 3 on top of each other in the center. Let's repeat this design in the other 3 locations. I've done all 4 with that design, and now I'm at the back of the build with this large open glass panel. It's going to have a similar design, but we've got to adjust it a little bit. I'm going to go straight across the top with my smooth quartz slabs. Then I'm going to come down to the base of this chiseled quartz block and add in another row of these. This will give the appearance of a full block's space. I'm going to leave another gap just like this. Add in my archway. Place in my quartz slabs along the base, and then place in my end rods. So you can see it's almost the same design, but we're going straight across the top instead of creating an arch. I'm also going to place in diorite slabs instead of having stairs on either side. We're going to create a similar design again on the front, but we've got to adjust it a little bit more. Let's add in our quartz slabs at the base first. Then I'm going to add in a row of smooth quartz slabs along the top. Come down to the base of this chisel block and add in 3 more. And then instead of having another row of slabs here, I'm going to place in 2 stairs on either side and a slab in the center to create this box sort of shape. Then I can create my arch as usual underneath here and place in 3 diorite slabs at the top. Now that we've got the front and back panel and these extra panels in the center filled in, I'm going to work on these diagonal corner panels. To create this, we're going to start with some diorite stairs on either side of the slabs, then some end rods going up, 2 groups of 2. We're going to create an archway here as well, but it's going to be a little bit different. So we'll start with quartz stairs facing away from each other. Then some smooth quartz stairs at the same level placed upside down towards each other. And then 2 more facing towards each other and upright, creating a small window at the top like this. Next, I'm going to use a temporary block of some sort to place a diorite slab in diagonally at the top. And I'm going to place in 2 smooth quartz slabs just like this. To fill in this gap now, I've got some quartz bricks looking like that. I'm going to place in stone buttons next, here and here. And this is what our archway should look like. Let's complete this on the other corner sections. If you're enjoying today's video and would like to access some additional benefits like downloads of schematics for this or all my other builds, as well as access to a server where you can build alongside me, check out the link to my Patreon. I'd really appreciate your support and I'd love to have you join my community. Just adding in the buttons on this last corner piece, and now I'm going to add some decorations to each of the columns. For these decorations, we'll start with a diorite stair at the base, then we'll have an end rod, followed by 2 quartz stairs, upside down, then right way up. I'll have a diorite wall, and then a quartz brick at the top with a stone button. And again, we'll follow this same pattern going up each of our columns. Of course, in these corner columns, I'm going to skip over it completely, but when we have a corner column like this one facing outwards, I'm going to need to place this design on twice on both of the outwards facing sides. Just like that. Let's continue placing all of these in. I'm just finishing the last step in this column decoration with the quartz bricks and the buttons now, and you can see that I really have gone ahead and placed it on every single one of these columns on the outward facing side. This is a very dimensional build, so you'll see there's lots of layers of decoration to achieve that intricate look. Almost there. Don't forget the ones at either end, and there we go. It's already starting to look awesome. Next, let's fill in the archways in these 2 wide windows. I'm going to use smooth quartz stairs here, and I'm going to place in 2 groups of 2 going up like this. Then to fill in the space above here, I'm just going to place in 2 diorite stairs facing forward. Over to the back side. There we go. Now we need to fill in these corner sections. So for these, we're going to start by creating an archway. I'm going to place in 2 of my smooth quartz stairs onto each of these blocks underneath the chiseled quartz block. I'm going to have a gap in the center here, but we'll fill that in with the next step. So I'm going to place in 2 more stairs, this time right way up, and connect them with a slab in the center. This will create that archway. I'll then place a row of smooth quartz stairs, or rather slabs, across the top like this. Finally, to fill in the gap here, I'll place in a diorite stair onto each of these quartz bricks and then connect them up around the corner with 3 slabs. So it'll look like that. I've got all of those corner pieces filled in. Now we've got to fill in all of these semi-diagonal or curving sections of the glass with a matching archway. So I'm going to start by placing in some of my smooth quartz stairs upside down below the chisel quartz block. Then just like before, I'm going to place in some right way up stairs and connect them with a slab in the middle. You can see how we've just bent the design around the corner here. I'm going to place in 3 more of my smooth quartz stairs, and now we need to place in a diorite stair on either side and a slab to fill in this gap. So if I was to go the other way, it's going to be just the same, but I'm curving on the opposite side. Diorite stairs and a slab. And this same design is going to fill in these spaces as well. So we've got our stairs, our slabs, diorite stairs, and a diorite slab. Let's fill in all of the remaining archways. And here's what we've got. It's looking fantastic. This is the entire base layer of our greenhouse complete. Let's also have a look from above so you can see the shape we've created. It's going to have a 3 thick wall look to it, but we're going to be covering up all of this kind of behind the scenes work when we add in our next layer. We're going to break the glass dome that goes over the top into a couple sections. Let's start by working on the 2 outer sides. I'm going to begin with some smooth quartz stairs, and I'm going to be placing 3 across the top of these diorite blocks here. 1, 2, 3. Then I'll add in a quartz pillar and add in 3 more. Another quartz pillar and 2 more. And then we're going to start to curve them around this way. So I'm going to rotate and place this smooth quartz stair on a curve and then zigzag back and forth to finish on top of this here quartz brick beside the diorite slab. On top of the diorite slab on the corner, I'll place in 1 more of my quartz pillars, and then I'm going to do this pattern in reverse. So you'll see that just like over here how this final one is curved, I want this final one to be curved too. So I'm going to need to make sure I curve them around in the right direction. I'll add in 2 more here and add in another quartz pillar. And now I'm going to repeat this in reverse. So let's curve these around this way, add in this. Once again, I want to make sure I can curve these all the way around here, just like that. Add in my 2 more to connect up on top of this brick and add in my pillar. And I'm almost at the other side, and you can see everything lines up. So if I look from above, You can see that my quartz pillars line up with each other across from the build, as do these two here, and these two quartz pillars are placed on top of the diagonal diorite slab. Let's repeat this over on the other side. Next, I'm going to take some polished diorite and I'm placing these behind where we added in those stairs and columns. So I'm going to go all the way along here and then one block towards the back. Then I'm going to leave a gap and add two here, leave a gap and add in this curve. Once again, leave a gap, two here, leave a gap, and then follow around this curve. Behind all of these diorite blocks, we're going to be placing in some quartz stairs. So these are just going to go straight along upside down like this and run into the edge. Then I'll place in two more, and in this corner space I'll add in a pearlescent frog light. Once again going straight into the diorite edge, so you'll see a little bit of the diorite poking through behind. Adding in this is going to give us a nice platform to be able to build on top of. There we go. Alrighty, let's add in some archways. I'm going to be adding in a few archways. I've got two on top of these two quartz pillars, and again over on this side on top of these two quartz pillars. I'm going to start by placing in a smooth quartz block on the diorite behind the pillar. Then I'll add in a stair. It's going to be really useful here to have some temporary blocks, because I'll place one behind to add in another stair, and behind to add in one more stair. So we've got 3 stairs in a row here. I'll add in another temporary block to place in a smooth quartz slab, followed by a block. Another temporary block, this time to add in 2 smooth quartz stairs and a block. And I'm going to repeat this same archway coming up from the other side. We should finish with a 1 block gap in between, and I'll place in a slab. Let's remove these temporary blocks. I'm now going to repeat this archway 3 blocks over above this here quartz pillar. Almost there, and then I've got to repeat both of these over on the other side. There we go, to the other side. Next, I'm going to create a matching arch in the center of the side to connect up to those two. So I'm starting again with my smooth quartz block, then some stairs. Now we've got a slab and a block, then 2 slabs and a block, and that's going to connect us up. Once again, I'm going to repeat this over on the other side. Along the center top of each of these, I'm going to place in 3 slabs and then 3 more slabs going back. In the center of these joins, I'll place in a quartz pillar with a diorite wall on top and then an end rod. I'm also going to place end rods along these 3 blocks here and here, and then on all of the blocks surrounding. Just like that. Next, I'm going to add in some diagonal pieces to connect up from here up to the top. So behind this quartz pillar, we should have a frog light, and I'm going to place 2 smooth quartz blocks on top. Then I'll use a temporary block to build diagonally back up 2. And again, I'll come diagonally back, this time just up the 1 block. And to finish this off, I'll come diagonally back again and place in 2 slabs, so that'll connect up. I've got to repeat this 3 more times now. 1 over here and then 2 over on the other side. You're following the same process, but of course you're going to have to move diagonally in the other direction. Next, we're going to create little archways within each of these little panels. Let's start with the diagonal ones. So where we switch between this first group of 2 to the second group of 2, I'm going to place a stair facing out towards its respective side. So on this side, we're going to go this way. Then on the stair opposite at the same level, I'm going to be placing in an upside down stair facing in towards the arch. Next, I'm going to need a temporary block, and I'm placing that backwards like this so I can place in 2 slabs to complete the archway shape. So again, I'll place it back and add in my arch. Let's repeat this. I've got all of those corner archways in, and you can see that they should blend in nicely with the rounded shape on the end. There we go. Next, we need to create archways between these 2 gaps, and these are a bit simpler. All we're going to do is place in 2 stairs facing in towards each other and then a slab in between, just like that. As you can see, I've added these archways in these 3 wide gaps now. I'm also going to go ahead and add this same design coming in towards the center of the build on each side. To do this, I'm going to need to use a few more temporary blocks just to place in this stair as well as the slab. You can see they kind of look like they're floating, but they should line up with the edge of where we've got this design for the roof. And once again, all of these stairs for the archways should be lined up along this block level. Now I've got all of this framing in, we're going to add in the glass. This is easiest done from inside the build, and we're going to work on these panels with the archways that are 3 wide. I'm going to start by placing my glass on top of these quartz stairs, building up 2 high and then 1 extra in the center. I'm then going to create an upside down U shape and then add 2 more to create a U shape when you look from above as well. For the next layer, I'm going to add in 2 blocks coming back in the center and then 2 blocks coming back on either side, creating this little pointy shape. And then finally, I'll fill it in, just reaching all the way back to those quartz slabs. So you'll end up with the same shape that we had down here at the base. Let's build that again. Coming up 2 high with 1 in the center, little upside down U, come back, add in a few more glass blocks here, and we're almost at the top. So here's how that glass should look. So I'm going to repeat this over on this side for those 2 points and in these 4 panels on the other side of the build. All 4 of these archway sections are filled in, so let's move on to something a bit more complex, which is these corner or curved sections. Now this section here is a mirror image of the one beside it, and then we copy this design and rotate it around to the other side and do the same thing on the other end of the greenhouse. But let's break it down into smaller sections. I'm going to start looking straight on from the front of the build, and I'm going to be building onto the quartz blocks at the back here, building a Tetris block shape up like this around this stair. I'm going to come back and do the opposite, placing it in like this. Now to fill in the gaps behind here, I'm going to come inside the build and place 1 block in diagonally up from here behind the stair, and then 2 blocks onto here and here to cover up the gap in that stair. So if we look from the front, you can't look through past the glass. We're going to repeat this design around on this curve. So once again, to do that, we're going to create a Tetris block shape on both sides with the tallest point being in the center. Then I'll come inside the curve and fill in the gap by placing a block here and 2 blocks here. And you can see that we've got this mirror line here on the diagonal. Before we move on to filling in these 2 top panels, let's repeat this design 2 more times to fill in this side of the build, and then we can repeat the whole shape over on the other end of the greenhouse. 2 Tetris block shapes, then come in and fill in the gaps. There we go. Let's go back outside the build now. For the next stage in this build, I'm going to come on top of this block that is beside the straight section of the greenhouse frame and place an extra block coming up and then 2 blocks off to the side. Over on the other side, it'll be on the other edge along this straight edge here. So again, I can create this little L shape, and then to fill in this gap, I'll place a block onto this diagonal block in the center. Going up another layer, we're going to create a similar Tetris shape as at the start, and you'll just place these in the 5 blocks to fill in the gap. And you should have all of this area filled in now with no holes in your greenhouse. Let's repeat this around on this side. So once again, I'm going to start by placing a block up on top beside this straight edge of the framing, come back 2, and add in 1 on the diagonal. And again over here, up by the straight edge of the framing, 2, and then onto the diagonal. And then I'll add in my 2 remaining Tetris block shapes 1 layer up just to fill in the rest of this greenhouse. So the entire end of your greenhouse roof should be filled in, and I can go ahead and do this on the other side. It's looking beautiful. We're going to be filling in this center section of the greenhouse in a minute, but I'm going to grab some diorite walls and some end rods to add a last couple details to this part of the build. I'm placing a diorite wall on top of all of these quartz pillar blocks, and then I'm going to grab my end rods and place one on every single stair, and as well as that on each of the diorite walls. If you don't have access to end rods, or at least not this many in survival, you could substitute these for chains, although I love the magic glow that these give to the build. It really does look fantastic. Let's start on filling in this center section. The front and the back are symmetrical here. I'm going to begin with some chisel quartz blocks, and I'm placing one on top of each of these quartz pillars. Then I'm going to connect them up with some more quartz pillars placed along horizontally like this. From here, I'm going to place in some quartz stairs upside down, 2 on each corner, and then a couple of diorite walls in the front. Let's do this on the reverse side. Now we're going to create some archways, and we're going to work on all the archways on one side and then flip and create the archways on the other side. So we've got 2 along the back and 2 at the front, and they're the same. So we're going to start with a smooth quartz block, then a chisel quartz block, and a smooth quartz block on top of that. Then I'll have 2 smooth quartz stairs. I'll place a block on top of here. Then I'm going to have 2 groups of 2 for the smooth quartz stairs coming in like this. On top of this final stair, I'll add in a smooth quartz slab, and then I'll finish with a smooth quartz block. Let's do this on top of each of these chiseled quartz blocks. If you're creating this Victorian greenhouse, be sure to join my Discord server and share some pictures. I'd love to see how you decorate it. And on to the final one. And I've got all of the archways on one side. Now I'm just going to do the exact same thing, but curving in the other way. So I'll start off the same way with a smooth quartz block, a chisel quartz block, and a smooth quartz block. And the only thing that I'm changing is flipping the stairs to face the other direction. Once I've got one, I can go ahead and complete all the others on top of the chisel quartz blocks the same way. And you will find that these don't quite meet up. There'll be a block gap. With those archways in, I'm going to grab some quartz stairs and continue this upside down quartz stair block all the way around this edge to fill in the gap. And connect back up on the other side. Next, we need to add an archway to either end to complete this section and connect it to the central section. To do this, I'm going to start by placing 2 glass blocks in on top of these here quartz stairs, connecting up to the glass beside. Then I'm going to grab some smooth quartz stairs and place one on top. And then I can either use a temporary block here or just click onto the glass to place in one more. Just like this. From here, I need to add in a temporary block so I can place in a smooth quartz slab, followed by a smooth quartz block. Then I'm going to place a smooth quartz slab in at the top level of this block and add one on top to create a smooth slope. One more slope on that side. To fill in this gap at the top, I'm going to be adding in a slab on either side and then connecting up with 3 more quartz bricks in the center like this. Let's repeat this design on this side. And we've got to make sure we're using the smooth quartz blocks here. They have a slightly different texture to the regular quartz blocks, but it really does enhance the build if you have a smooth look in some places and then in choice places have the more tiled look. Finishing with my 3 quartz bricks. And our sections are connected. For the next step, I'm going to grab a temporary block and add it to the end so that I can place in some quartz pillars horizontally connecting up between here, and then I'm going to extend another 3 pillars in. And I've got to do this on both ends. Then I'm going to add some archways in between these larger archways. So to place these in, I'm going to come to this layer where we have a single block with a stair below and above. And I'm going to place in an upside down smooth quartz stair on either side, followed by a smooth quartz slab in the center. So I'm going to do this, of course, between the archways, like I said. But I'm also going to add in the same design coming back off of this archway and this archway towards the center of the build. So I'm going to need to use an extra temporary block to place in the second stair here. And you can see that this archway kind of looks like it's floating. Now to repeat on the other side. We're going to fill in these panels with glass in just a second, but I'm going to add one more smaller archway just with 2 smooth quartz stairs and a smooth quartz slab, and those are only going in the 4 archways connected with the larger arches. And the last one. There we go. Now onto the glass panels. These 4 are going to be exactly the same. I'm starting with some glass, and I'm going to place on top of these upside down quartz stairs, and I'm just going to build all the way up to the height of where we have this archway, and then one higher in the center. To fill in the next layer, I'm going to create a U shape like this, and then add 1 extra block on top. The next layers will be easier from the outside of the build. All I'm going to do is add in a block onto this stair and this stair, and then create a little T shape to fill in the top. Before we fill in the 4 glass panels that will connect up to the central dome, we need to create the base for the central dome. So I'm going to start by coming to where we have our 3 quartz bricks. And I'm going to place in a polished diorite stair upside down on either side of the center. Then I'm going to place in a quartz pillar on either side of that, pointing in towards the build. I've got to do this on the other side as well. Just like this. Beside these 2 quartz pillars, I'm going to place in 2 quartz bricks. And now we need to start curving back around. To do this, I'm going to place in a diorite wall and place a quartz brick onto that on a diagonal. Then onto these quartz bricks, I'm going to place in 2 smooth quartz stairs upside down, pointing in towards the center. Just like that. There'll be a 3-block gap between them. Now I'm going to grab some of my quartz pillars, and I'm going to add 1 on top of each of the stairs. And then use a temporary block to come 1 block back and place in 3 quartz bricks. This will close up the gap and complete the circle. If I have a look from above, you can kind of see the circular shape I'm talking about. Grabbing out some more quartz pillars, I'm going to add 1 more on top of these original 4 we placed in, and then add 2 on top of these quartz pillars. Next, I'm going to begin filling in these gaps on the front and back. So I'm going to place a quartz brick on top of these horizontal pillars. And then building from the outside, I'm going to grab smooth quartz stairs and place one in upside down and then right way up. I'm going to take some quartz bricks and place 1 on top of each of these pillars. And then on the 2 sides of the build, I'm going to place in a quartz brick, a chisel quartz block, and then 1 more quartz brick, so it should be at the same height. There we go. Next, I'm going to grab some glass blocks, and I'm going to place 3 on top of each of the diorite walls and diorite stairs. Jumping to the outside of the build now, I'm going to grab some more smooth quartz stairs, and I'm going to place them facing out on the 2 sides like this. And then on these diagonal corner windows, I'm going to place them facing in towards each other, creating a smaller, almost oval-shaped window. Now that we've got this central section filled in, we can start filling in these remaining 4 panels connecting up this archway to our dome. I'm going to begin inside the build, and I'm going to start by placing 2 up on each of these stairs. And remember, we're creating the same design, just flipping it to face the right direction. Just like that. For the next step, I'm going to place my first block onto this stair and then create kind of a sideways L shape. I'll then add 1 more block in the center of this 3 long section. Now I'm going to come outside the build. I'm going to place in a block on either side, 1 onto this here quartz brick and 1 onto the stair, and then I'll place in a little kind of L shape. Finally, I just need to place 1 more glass onto these quartz bricks. Let's go ahead and do this on the other side. So once again, start by building up 2 and then build a little L shape. Add in an extra block. Coming to the outside of the build to fill in this last section. Let's take a step back and check it out. Next, we need to fill in the decorations on this front and the back panel. I'm going to start by grabbing out some of my quartz pillars, and I'm going to add 1 on top of these chiseled quartz blocks. I'll then add a chiseled quartz block on top of that. Now we need to create some archways using some smooth quartz stairs, just 2 on these sides. And in the center, I'll also use a smooth quartz slab just to extend across that gap. Coming up from here, we're going to create an arch in the other direction with 2 stairs and a slab. Just like this. And now I'm going to grab out some diorite walls. I'm going to place 1 on top of the chisel quartz blocks and then directly up from that onto the stair. I'm also going to place 1 on top of the slab and in the center here. Next, I'm going to grab some end rods and I'm going to place in a couple stacks of these going up in rows, connecting up between the top and the bottom of the arch. You want to make sure you start at the bottom each time, so that way the joins in the end rods are in the same place. You can see that these joins line up across the end rod stacks. Next, I'm going to grab 2 more smooth quartz stairs and add them in either corner to round off the shape just a little bit more. I'm going to grab some quartz stairs and place 2 on the corners of the build. And I'll connect these with some more end rods. And while I've got them out, I'll also place them on top of these diorite walls. I'll grab some stone buttons next and placing them onto these chisel quartz blocks, the pillar at the top here, and then on to these 2 smooth quartz blocks at the front. I'm also going to grab stone buttons and place them around the corner from those 2 here and here. And now I can come inside the build and grab out some glass blocks and fill in the front panel. This is as simple as placing glass blocks on top of these upside down quartz stairs and building all the way up to the glass blocks above. Provided all of your archways were filled in correctly, this should cover the entire end of this section of the build in glass. You can see that there is no holes poking through. And if I come over on this side, it's looking beautiful. But I need to add some decorations to the top. So up here, I'm going to add a diorite wall with an end rod on either side, and above it, I'll add 3 of my end rods going back, followed by a chisel quartz block with a diorite wall and an end rod on top. I'll add end rods on either side and 2 more going back to the center of the build. I'm going to repeat this same design along the top as well as the front design over on the back. And since this build is symmetrical, if you do get stuck, you can always go back and check that it is all lining up and matching. So once again, I'll start with my quartz pillars, chisel quartz blocks, and archways. Both ends are done. Let's work on the dome now. I've got some chisel quartz blocks and I'm going to start by placing these on the corner glass blocks all the way around like that. Then I've got some quartz stairs and we're going to create an edge to build on top of. So you want to start beside one of these chisel quartz blocks with the stair facing out, and then I'm just going to continue wrapping these around to connect up to the other side. It's important that when you place in the last stair, you curve it back in towards the chisel quartz block. Over this side of the build, you're going to need to place in this stair as if it's floating, but then you can continue on as normal. And once again, over this end, I'll need to place it as if it's floating and then continue on, as with this stair. I'm going to grab some diorite walls and place them onto the quartz bricks that are on either side of the center. So I'm not placing one on here. There we go. Now I'm going to come inside the build and we're going to build a little bit of a platform out of some polished diorite. So I'm going to start by placing a polished diorite in each of these gaps. There we go. I'm also going to add one coming down on either side from the front and the back. Next, I'll place a polished diorite on either side of this chisel quartz block. And I'm going to grab out some polished diorite stairs, which I'll place facing towards each other underneath that. On the two sides where we have the dual windows, I'm going to place a stair in the center and then up on either side. And then on the opposite two sides, I'll place a stair in the center and up to the two sides again. But this time you'll see that there looks like there's a lot more diorite happening because we don't have windows on the front and the back. I'm also going to take some polished diorite slabs and I'm going to place them in between the pairs of stairs here, as well as in each corner. This is going to create the look of a smaller circle with a stepped look to the polished diorite from the interior. And from above, we've got a nice platform to build on. The first thing we're going to build onto here is our glass. So I'm going to build 4 high across these 3 blocks, then onto the corner, 3 blocks, and so on. Onto the corner, 3 blocks. So I'm just following the edge of the small circle. Just like that. Now to create the look of some pillars, I'm going to grab some quartz pillars and place one facing out in the center of each 3 wide section, then build up 2 and add another facing out at the top. On each corner on top of these chisel quartz blocks, I'll place in another chisel quartz block, followed by 2 more of my quartz pillars and finish with 1 more chisel quartz. Next, we're going to create some archways with some smooth quartz stairs. I'm just going to place these facing in towards each other. Next up for the design, I'm going to grab some diorite walls and end rods, and I'm going to place one at the top and bottom of each pillar and connect with the end rods. On the corners, I'm going to need to do this on both outward facing sides. Let's take a step back. For the dome on top, I'm going to start with a chisel quartz block, which I'm going to place on top of this diorite wall. I'll add in a smooth quartz block and then use a temporary block to place in an upside down stair with a right way up one on top. You can see how we're starting to curve in. I'll use another temporary block to place in another stair. And then I'm going to grab 2 smooth quartz slabs and stack them on top of each other. And I'll finish off this section with a quartz pillar facing outwards like that. I'm going to repeat this on top of each of these flat facing diorite walls. You should find that your quartz pillars connect up in the center but leave a gap right in the very center of the dome. Now that I've got all 4 in, I can add a decoration to the top. I'll place in a quartz brick in the very center with a chisel quartz block on top. I'm going to surround this with some diorite walls and place one in the center, and I'm going to place end rods on top of all of these. I'm also going to take some stone buttons and place them onto the outward facing side of these blocks. Next, I want to create some archways, so I'm going to grab a few more of my smooth quartz stairs and place them onto these upside down stairs so that they curve around like this. To create the rest of the archway, I'll use a temporary block coming in from both sides to place in 2 smooth quartz slabs. And while I'm at it, I'm going to be placing in a smooth quartz slab on top of this chiseled quartz and then off to each side diagonally so that I've got 3 in a row like this. With all of our archways in, we can add the glass to this dome. To do this, I'm going to come inside the dome and I'm going to start by building 2 high across these 3 wide sections. Then in each of these 2 diagonal blocks, I'll build up 3 high. Next, I'll connect across the top and build 1 higher. Next, we need to fill in these corner spaces, and this will be as easy as placing in a block here, and then I'm going to be placing in some little V shapes, but we'll do that from the outside. So I'll place those corner sections in and come to the outside of the build by placing the block onto this slab here and then into a corner shape. Here's how the glass will look. Now we're going to add in some more details. I'm going to place a diorite wall with an end rod on top of each of these stairs on the first layer of the large arches. Then I'm going to grab some iron trapdoors and we're going to make a design around the edge. So the first trapdoor I'm going to place onto this block here. Then I'm going to grab a temporary block to place a trapdoor 1 layer down like this. I'll place one on top of these 2 diorite walls and one down a layer, and you can see the slight dip here. And the same thing, one directly onto this block, and then I'll need to place in a temporary block to place my iron trapdoor a layer down. Once I've done this on each side, I'm going to place an end rod onto the 3 lower trapdoors. This build is really coming together now. I'm going to use some more iron trapdoors to add a little bit more decoration to the edge of this build. Starting on the corner of this front section, I'm going to add in an iron trapdoor, and I'm placing it onto these stairs. I'm then going to add iron trapdoors on top of these 2 diorite blocks and then come one out from that. Then I'm going to begin alternating between placing them onto this diorite layer and the quartz layer above to create this kind of scalloped texture. The only place that I need to place 2 of my trapdoors onto the quartz layer is on the corners of the build where we have these real diagonal windows, and there should be a quartz pillar here with a diorite wall and a end rod on top. Then I'll go back to my pattern. So for the next trapdoor, I'll go down a layer and then back up again. You'll know that you're following the pattern correctly because each of these up ones will sit over the top of a button like this. We won't have a situation where it's the other way and we can't place in a trapdoor. I'm up to my corner, so that means I need to stay up on this layer and then I can continue on with the pattern. When I get around to the other side of the build, I'm going to place my 2 trapdoors on top of these diorite blocks and then my single trapdoor in this corner between these 2 stairs. Then I can come over to the other side and continue this. The last step for construction is to add in a door. I'm using a pale oak door, but you can use your preferred door type or leave it without. And let's take a step back and look at our beautiful greenhouse. As you can see, I've been busy adding decorations to both the exterior and the interior of my greenhouse, and we'll have a look inside in just a moment. If I go up, you can see that since we've got a grand symmetrical Victorian style build, I've stuck to a similar theme for my planting. I've mixed both symmetry, where I've got these fountains flanking either side and the nice orderly path, with a little bit of a natural aspect, with each of my garden beds having a similar but slightly different design. And this works well with a build that blends the structure of the greenhouse with the beautiful plants inside. Let's come around to the back side of the build. One thing that you'll notice is that I've stuck to a colour palette of greens and whites for the exterior, so that way it plays into the colour palette of the build and lets the flowers inside shine. And now that the sun has come over the top of my greenhouse, you can see that I've created a sort of hedge maze and hedge design here at the back. And if I go up, you can see that it is a symmetrical sort of design back here as well. Of course, the maze is not quite symmetrical, or it really wouldn't function as a maze, but each of my planting schemes with the little garden beds here and the topiaries are all symmetrical and kind of wrap around the build in a curved fashion, matching the curves in the build itself. I've used the same fountain design at the front and back, and you could get creative adding larger fountains too. They always look so great alongside greenhouses. I've also gone with spruce leaves here, and I like the contrast between the leaves, the grass, and the topiaries that I've created with azalea bushes and moss blocks. As we slowly move around this greenhouse, you can see pops of colour peeking through from all the planting inside. I think it's a really nice idea to make sure you have garden beds planted right towards the edges of the windows, so that way all of the colour from the flowers peeks through. I've gone for a colourful design inside my greenhouse, but you could change it up for whatever sort of style you like. You could even have a tropical theme inside your greenhouse. Let's take a look inside. Walking up this grand pathway, when we first enter the greenhouse, you'll see that I built a custom tree. I've gone with a nice tall tree that reaches right up into the dome of the treehouse, so you can get a glimpse of it from looking at all heights of the build, and it really makes use of this space. I flanked this tall tree with 2 smaller trees, one over here and one over here, and these act as focal points. For the terrain inside the greenhouse, I've kept it fairly flat so that way I have as much space as possible to plant, although I have added a little bit of dimension, raising up this side of the greenhouse a little bit and lowering this small section off to the other side. I've created a winding pathway out of a mixture of different coral blocks, gravel and andesite, and this goes all the way around the big tree, and then I use smaller pieces of pathway to create a cobbled look around the smaller trees. I've used lots of different flowers all throughout my planting schemes, and then I've used plants like bamboo and these strip leaves as well as the hanging vines up above to create a bit of dimension and height. As well as adding in my lanterns, which I've got on fence posts and hanging from the trees. A great way to light up a greenhouse is to use glowberries. I've hung them already from the ceiling, and I'm going to go through and bone meal a few of these to add to the warm glow. Because this greenhouse also uses end rods, it already has some built-in lighting, but you can add as much or as little lighting as you like for the aesthetic you're going for. Walking along these pathways, you can see that I've gone with a magical cottage garden look, although you could do whatever style you like. You could have a desert style greenhouse, you could even have a greenhouse with plants all from the nether. It's always a good idea though to use a mixture of different plants, that way there's always something new to look at in your greenhouse. Two more details you might like to add to the interior of your greenhouse to add ambiance are little bees like this with little bee nests tucked in your trees, and to add in some of these spore blossoms which add a kind of magical green effect to the whole space. So now you have a stunning Victorian greenhouse in your world. If you enjoyed creating today's video, I'd really appreciate it if you consider liking and subscribing, and check out my Patreon if you'd like to support me further. I'll see you in another video.